She's got one of the computers for a mechanic at the highway. His sister-in-law was just down in Georgia, and they like to go down there. And he goes, I could swing it.
Just don't like shut off now.
And I'm like,
Looking pretty good right now.
interesting. So, but it's just. Yeah, Diane's gonna blow the we have again tomorrow because she did EKG Friday. Yeah, she's doing it. She's doing it. Yeah. They do. They because of vacations and everything, they have really came in. We were like, yes,
We're doing a lot better than the old ones.
and had some different views on how
Ladies and gentlemen, if we could start kind of settling down, we're going to start the meeting here soon.
Okay, the time is 7:05. I will call the June 24th, 2026 meeting of the Whitley County Planning Commission to order. I'd ask that everybody please stand and face the flag, and we will recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next, we're going to go through a roll call for members present, please.
Yes, Mr. President. Travis Baker.
Here.
Stacy Petrovas.
Here.
Dane Drew.
Here.
Brent Emmerich.
Here.
Jack Green.
Here.
Tim Longenball.
Here.
Mark Johnson.
Here.
Kim Kurtzessler.
Here.
Joe Wolf.
here.
And John Woodvansey.
Thank you. Next item is last month's minutes. Did everybody have a chance to review those?
I have a change in the minutes on the adjournment. Brent wasn't here. I adjourned it.
I will make that amendment.
With that amendment, I move to approve the minutes.
Second.
We have a second from Joe. Any other further discussion? May we have a roll call vote to approve the minutes, please, Brent?
Yes, sir. Travis Baker.
Aye.
Stacy Petrovas.
Aye.
Dane Drew.
Aye.
Brent Emmerich.
Abstain?
Jack Green.
Yes.
Tim Longenball.
Aye.
Mark Johnson.
Aye.
Kim Kurtzessler.
Abstain.
And Joe Wolf.
Aye.
Thank you. Those pass. Next item is the oath of witnesses. We are not going to administer an oath tonight because we have no normal business. What we have is solely a listening session. So this is not an official public hearing, and nobody will need to be sworn in tonight. So we will skip right over that. Next item is old business, and we have no old business. So we will move right into our new business, which also was continued till next month. So we will not. We will skip right over that. Moving on, we do have a staff report that was put together that we are going to go through before this public listening session does get started. So I will turn the floor over to Brent to get the ball rolling on the data center discussion.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Basically, what I want to go through is going to be kind of where we stand and what conversations we've had in the process, so everybody's kind of on the same page and is understanding what we're trying to accomplish tonight. So at the current time, Whitley County does not have any zoning code that pertains to data centers. Proactively, we are looking at getting a zoning code in place before we have any proposals or have anybody file any plans for data centers in Whitley County. So what we're trying to do is have a listening session for the community to come up and share your concerns, ideas, thoughts, so that we can get into a process of code development. And in this code, we will be dealing with data centers, all sizes, from the very small hubs that are inside a government building, inside a jail, inside many of the local businesses, all the way up to the hyperscale, I guess the large data centers that we've heard the stories of all around the state. So a few codes that we have dealt with in some of our previous meetings where we had discussions, it has been asked of us to look at some other codes that have already been adopted in Indiana. There are very few. There aren't a lot of counties that have codes. Some of the ones we have is Fountain County. They have a very strict zoning code that does prohibit data centers. We have other counties that have them by special exception in certain zoning areas. Allen County, they already had something in place that dealt with data centers. I'm going to have some reference slides that you can see as we talk about how to determine the zoning for different sizes of data centers. We have put together kind of an aerial view of some of the industrial parks in the area and sizes of the buildings that are in those so that you can kind of have a reference of building size as we get into discussion. In formulating a code, once we have this listening session and the Plan Commission works together with our department and the Planning and Building to draft a code draft so that we can bring back, that's when public hearings will get involved. So we'll schedule public hearings so that the public can have more input in the decision-making part of that. Some ways that we can go about forming draft code is by classifying the data centers by multiple different characteristics. So on the screen, you'll see there's use, there's accessory uses as well as primary uses. There are, as I said before, many businesses that have just a room in their building that is a data center, servers, processors for their business itself. Then we go all the way up to a primary that is a standalone data center. We can also go through form, which would be ways we can look at the size of the buildings, the size of the properties that the buildings are on, the amount of floor area. There are cities that have data centers that are in multi-floor buildings. And height is also another one to do. We also want to look into performance, your utility usage, how much water, how much electricity, are the different types, styles, sizes of data centers, what their usage is, noise, parking, employment, are all types of characteristics that we can use to develop code. There was discussion at one of the meetings similar to how we classify in Whitley County our confined feeding operations, where we have a class 1, class 2, class 3 that is determined by building size, the amount of animals that are raised on these facilities. So not necessarily using the terms as a class 1, class 2, class 3, maybe having more definition to what they are and doing some zoning that way. Accessory data centers, there's one of the codes that we did review was out of Wisconsin. They went through accessory data centers and kind of a definition and description of what an accessory use is. And you can see that on the screen. A lot of these slides I'm just going to be able to bounce back to for reference as you all have comment. again, this is kind of a comparison when we're talking into code of the small 10, 50,000 square foot, buildings. We could have a 150, 200,000 square foot industrial property in one of our industrial parks, and 10,000 square feet of that building could be the data center part of that business. So that would be an accessory use. The primary would be the business operation itself, and the data center part of the building be an accessory to that business. And then that's going to go all the way up to your hyperscale data centers that are, huge water users, huge power users, and large buildings, as well as campuses. So you could have a campus that's 700-800 acres, 1,000 acres, have multiple buildings on there that serve as this data center. Here is just an idea of what accessory data centers would look like. So if you look at the bottom left image, that was a little 300 square foot, basically room that is a data center inside of an industrial setting. So, we are looking at having a code that would allow for our existing industry to be able to support themselves with their own data processing. The top left is an 18.8 thousand square foot building. This is one of Comcast, where you would have some of your companies having their own data centers for processing as well. The one in the top right is actually over in Fort Wayne and Huntertown. It is for EOS, who is actually the IT company that we use for the county in this building anyways. And they have a 4,500 square foot data center in there. It's just servers, so that they're using their server space for operations of their business. Then we get all the way to this scale. This is your Google in Fort Wayne that's looking at being a 700-acre, 12-plus building operation, which is what I would call a campus. And then another Amazon data center in New Carlisle. It's a 1,200-acre data center. So those are kind of the two extremes of where we're dealing with developing this code, and need you guys' input to determine where we want to go with code drafting. This is kind of goes through kind of what our goal was, what the Plan Commission and commissioners have discussed of creating definitions. We need definitions for these operations. Data center is such a broad term and covers anything from a small server room being a data center to our hyperscale. So we want to kind of look into sizes that make sense, what our community would support, ones that would benefit our community. And so our small to the left in the little blue is going to be our accessory and small scale data centers. I don't think anybody's opposed to our existing businesses having their own data center in their industry building. And then the heavy restricted, where we get into the hyperscale, developing code that it's really, really restricted. There would be a lot of standards and put into place to make it very difficult for that to happen. And then in the gray area is kind of where we're trying to determine. So we're going to try to develop a code that makes sense, and we need to figure out where that gray area, where the lines are that we draw. So if we're looking at your 50 to 100,000 square foot, if we choose to go by square footage of building, where would those fit? If you get into the 200,000 square feet, where would those fit? If they get up to 300,000 square feet, are there places that those could fit? What kind of approvals would be needed? Would it need to be rezoned? What zoning areas would be allowed to have any data centers? And what kind of development standards we would have in place to restrict or at least guide the rules that we would need to put into place to make them responsible decisions for our county. we did just find recently, the city of Louisville has a pending code that prohibits any future data centers exceeding 500,000 square feet. Some of the smaller facilities that do support business have utility usage that is low, closed loop water cooling systems, and that type of thing are allowed by special exception in some industrial areas. Some of the smaller ones are permitted in industrial areas. So we just need to kind of determine what zones and what kind of development standards we want to put into place for responsible growth in Whitley County, but also protecting the citizens of Whitley County. Just to give you kind of a timeline where we're at in this. So April, May, we had some discussion about doing some research, starting some research on what codes are in place now in different areas of the country, in Indiana, and comparing those and see what might fit into Whitley County. So as of right now, we are at June 24th, which is a public listening session. So basically getting the community involved and asking questions and letting us know what concerns are, letting us know kind of a guide of how you want us to draft a code. We're in a really good position right now because we don't have people knocking down our doors to get data centers in right now. We have nothing has been proposed to our office at all. So if you guys remember solar, when we were going through solar code, we were kind of reactive. We had a proposal, there was a site, and so we were reacting to an individual project. We don't have a project right now. So we're sitting in a good position to make sure that we're making the decisions that make sense and are responsible for the county. After public listening session, and this is just a preliminary schedule. I'm not going to guarantee that these dates are spot on. They're just a theory. So through July, we will be doing some code drafting. So at the meeting, we'll probably be discussing code. We may have some rough drafts written up that we can go through and amend, obviously. And then in August, probably have a public hearing. So similar to this, where it's a public listening session where you guys have input on the draft, now you have an idea of what the code's going to look like. And read through, see what changes any of you would suggest be made, and we can look at that as well. After that, obviously there will be revisions to the code, and then we probably have another public hearing on those changes. So it's going to be a long process. By the time we get to September, October, hopefully we will have a code that is approved by the Plan Commission, and then the code will go to the county commissioners for adoption if approved. So from there, I'm going to turn it over to everybody else. We will be doing for Mr. President's request, we're going to leave a timer on speaking at 3 minutes, just so that everybody gets a chance to share their information. Please, if you've got similar items of concern as someone else that has already stated, feel free to come up and say, my concerns are similar regarding the water usage, just so we have kind of a tally of numbers of concerns. And then we've got a cutoff time at 10. I'm going to leave that up to Mr. President, how the flow is going and how many people are able to speak, to him to make his determination on that. So with that, we're here to listen to your concerns, get some ideas, and listen. So I'll turn it back over to Mr. President.
Thank you, Brent. Is there any questions from the Planning Commission before we get started off of what you've seen from those slides?
Yeah, I just have one thing, Brent, and maybe Liz. Do you guys have any updates yet on where state bills stand regarding data centers, or how restricted we could be moving forward by Indianapolis?
I do not, and they're not in session right now, so there's no bills that have been filed. So we would have to wait until next session to see what comes out of it.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? I don't even know if is this mic on. Okay, I'll try to speak clearly, and whoever is speaking at the podium, please try to do the same. So Brent covered what we need to do tonight, and I'll just go over a few things to help speed this along. Anyone can speak. You don't have to be a resident of Whitley County. Anybody can speak. We've already discussed that you do not need sworn in. So if anybody gets here late, they can come right and get in line. I would ask that before anyone begins speaking, that you do state your name and address, and we will keep that as a record, as we do every month. So. Without anything further, I would like to give Scott Wagner with the Health Department the first chance at the podium, and then after that, anybody can come up and address the Planning Commission. Thank you.
Good evening. Like Brent said, my name is Scott Wagner. I live at 2772 North 350 West, Columbia City. I'm also the Whitley County Health Department Director. I've been here for almost 30 years. I'm also a nationally credentialed environmental health specialist. So all your local environmental issues run through me in the county. And so I presented the board here with a few of my items, just general items to think about for construction and operation of a data center in Whitley County. And I'll go over that really quickly. And if anybody wants a copy of this, just contact me at the health department and you can have a copy of this. By no means is this complete or detailed, but just a general overall idea of what to expect. So I addressed ideas of water, sanitation, cooling, drainage, heat, dispersion, light, noise, recycling, and energy efficiency, and all the things that came out. Oh, here. So the biggest thing most people are here for is about cooling, about water usage. In my comments, I did recommend that there would be no use of groundwater for cooling or surface waters for cooling. We have enough land mass in Whitley County. We can use geothermal closed loop systems with non-toxic coolant to cool these places. We already have a well ordinance in Whitley County since 1998 that restricts that. So they have to get a permit. It's inspected. It's graphed with the GPS unit. When those are installed, they have to use certain types of materials and non-toxic coolant when using closed-loop geothermal wells. I think that we could establish, at least in the small and medium range data centers, we could establish using those types of cooling systems to effectively cool those plants if that happens to be there. Did any of the board have an idea or look through anything? Have any questions for me at all? It's pretty general. Just some ideas to think about. Obviously, we have some really great companies in Whitley County and have been very thoughtful in our process of bringing those things here that benefit our community. And I think this is an opportunity, again, to establish a world-class ordinance that would regulate and restrict some uses in here to benefit everybody in the community. Anybody have any other questions for me? Anything else you want me to go into detail? I'd be more than happy to give you my time anytime you want to have sessions, meetings, or if you're having a committee that's being established, just let me know.
Are you developing those on your own, or are you working with the state?
Developing what, sir? Just my ideas? Huh? So yeah, they're going to be developing a code to recommend to the commissioners. We already have a well ordinance in Whitley County since 1998. Actually, I go out and mark every well that's drilled in Whitley County. So that would be the same thing with this. If a data center was approved and they used closed loop geothermal wells, I would go out and approve every location. And then once those are drilled, I would GPS those locations, and that would be on your GIS map for Whitley County. Also in that ordinance, just so you know, if there is not an already water well on the property, a water well would have to be drilled to monitor the groundwater to make sure that those geothermal loops are not leaking. So. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Scott.
Thanks.
You don't have to raise your hand. You can go right up there, and you can form a line too. That way we can keep this moving along.
Hello, my name is Hattie Preston. I live at 412 North Oak Street here in Columbia City. I have many concerns about data centers coming into our community in the large scale. I think there's enough precedent of the small data centers running inside of businesses that those don't cause as many issues as the larger data centers. However, I think we're all very concerned about increase of utilities, how much water will be used, but also the noise pollution, especially in Texas. They've found that where these large scale data centers go in, that there's damage to livestock, that weight decreases on livestock as well as milk production decreases because of the stress on the animals from the noise pollution, which can travel 2 miles and penetrates walls, and it's high pitched. It causes people to develop headaches and insomnia because it's hard to sleep with that amount of noise. Those are my concerns. And my other concern is even if we put in restrictions and allow them to come in, like you said, with groundwater, what's stopping the data centers from just doing what they want? So that's my concern. There's lots of money behind these businesses and data centers, and there's a lot of money to pay the fines, and that will negatively affect our community. Those are my concerns. Thank you for your time.
Hi, I'm Becky Walter. I live at 526 East Jefferson here in Columbia City. Can everybody hear me? Okay. Just for the rest of you, you got to really lean in and get close to a microphone to be heard. I'm a retired music teacher, and I want to talk to you about noise. And what I want to talk to you about is decibels to be specific. When they say something is so many decibels, right? Like something's 70 decibels. We were 70 decibels before you started the meeting. We were all talking a little loud. A loud restaurant is 70 or so. You can live at that level for a long time. But what you may not understand is when it goes to 80, it is not just 10 points. It is 2 times louder. So from 70 to 80 is not just 10. It's like 160, right? And it's the difference between if you and I are having a conversation and you lose your temper, because I never would. Ask my husband. And you lose your temper and you raise your voice. You might go from 70 to 80. So you might be twice as loud, but what you need to understand is the difference is 10 times the intensity for every 10 decibel levels, okay? That's why your blood pressure goes up. That's why you start to sweat, because it is the intensity of the noise. So when you consider the noise that these systems can produce, remember that 80 decibels is a lot, and you can lose hearing after 85, but when they go to 90 and sometimes can go to 100, it's 100 times louder, 100 times more intense. Those are things that we need to consider. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kirk Bradmiller. I live at 4637 North Sheldon Road in Cherubusco. Did you guys get a chance? I know Brent sent a message over to you guys. You get a chance to see this packet. I don't know if anybody want.
Could I have one, please?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
So I'm kind of interested in the question that kind of came up in the May and the April meetings that was just repeated over and over and over, which is what kind of data center are we actually talking about? And I'm trying to come up with some ways to differentiate them to give us a chance to kind of cut things when we're going through the zoning ordinance and trying to write it. So the two things that kind of differentiate data centers, it comes down to two questions, like who uses the data center, and then what is it used for? So with the first question of who uses the data center, there's three different types, and I have them highlighted on the paper there. There's a single enterprise, which is when one company owns the servers and it's for their own business. Then it moves up to the second type, which is co-location, where many companies own the servers and they're in the same building. And then it goes to cloud, which is just enormous. It's one company owns all the servers and you're paying them for their computing. At the end of your guys' meeting in May, you were kind of modeling a little bit of a 200,000 square foot data center. You kind of said roughly, they were modeling it, they weren't approving it. Jeez. So the model that you guys are saying is it was roughly $500 million would be how much that would cost to build. And that would put us right along the lines of small cloud, but kind of a larger co-location. I want to go over kind of the energy usages of those different pieces just based on who uses it. So for enterprise, if it was 200,000 square feet, and this is just for the enterprise, a little caveat is enterprise is never going to be this big, so don't let this number blow your eyes out first. So for enterprise, it's between 10 to 30% of the Whitley County's entire annual electrical grid in one building. When you move up to co-location, it can be 35 to 75% of our entire grid that we're currently using. When you get up to cloud, it can be well over 100%. And that's one building at the size of 200,000 square feet. So moving on past that, the other important question is, what is the data center being used for? So for general business use is one thing. Something like CNA or 80/20 would use it for is much different than artificial intelligence, crypto mining, weather modeling, or scientific research. So even under the single enterprise part of it, if you're doing something like AI training, it could be over 300% of our grid just in the one building. And that's if they're trying to use it for AI. So what I'm trying to focus on here is we kept talking about square footage in that meeting, and you're not dealing with the manufacturing company. You're dealing with a very specialized energy sinkhole is basically what it is. So you really have to get down what the people are using this for and who is using it to kind of get an idea of what to do with it. I'm going to skip over water and noise and all that because I'm sure that more people would want to talk about that. But what I wanted to kind of give is kind of a side idea. I do think it's wildly unfair that commissioners and local county officials are here to make this decision. This wasn't something in the last election cycle when we were going through it and campaigning. Nobody was really talking about data centers to the extent they are now as early as last year. So it's really getting pushed on us here. That's why I think something like a public referendum should be considered as a tool in this process. Hey, we're not Silicon Valley. None of us are experts in every aspect of tech. So when we reach the point where we don't have clear answers, I think a public vote might bridge that gap. It could be a positive to give the people who are living with the consequences the actual ability to vote and have their voice heard. And that's what I had to say about that. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Wesley Haffenden. My address is 4117 Woodhill Drive, Fort Wayne. And I'm also your Democratic nominee for state representative for most of Whitley County. I appreciate you guys having this listening session for the public. Respectfully, I'd like to say if you'd like to keep your jobs, I'd encourage you to listen to your constituents and follow Fountain County in passing a moratorium on data centers for Whitley County. These data centers are directly responsible for an increase in our utility bills due to the cost of the build-out being passed on to consumers. Those same utility companies are funding politicians across the state, including my opponent here in Whitley County. Folks are fed up, and you have an opportunity to do something different. Enough is enough.
Good evening. My name's Henry Janda, 4360 East, 700 South. I'm going to try and do things a little more, hopefully, in the right vein. My questions were, and some of them been addressed, what is a data center, their sizes and what have you, and how will it be powered? They're going to power local, they're going to use the grid. Some places are putting in small nuki. Now you got backup power that you got to consider as well. And they're going to be generators. And there has to be battery backup for carryover if you lose power until your secondary power can come up. So are these batteries going to be lead acid? Are they going to be lithium? All of that's got to be addressed. And we talked about chillers a little bit and recycled water and pump and dump kind of things. And that should be covered within the ordinance. And the type of power backup again, and what will fuel these generators. And there's going to have to be a lot of them. Will it be natural gas or diesel? How much diesel storage will there be? How many thousand gallons? I worked at GTE, Verizon, and their burn rate was about over 100 gallons an hour. So you're going to have a lot of diesel storage. And these are just things that need to be addressed within the ordinance. Other than that, gentlemen, have a good evening.
Hi, I'm John Myers. I'm currently the president of the Redevelopment Commission, and we do a lot of the work that helps with the siting of industrial buildings and that sort of thing in the county. Also, I'm the former economic development director for the county. But in my opinion, and I've spent a lot of time with this, I think I can say safely that I haven't talked to anybody in the county that thinks a hyperscale facility in Whitley County is a good idea. And I think that should be an easy decision for you in terms of what you're when you're laying out the ordinance. Similarly, on the other end, as Brent pointed out, we have to be concerned about the needs of our current businesses. So to address a couple of issues, and I put all of this in a list that I can hand out, but I really think that you need to think about closed loop cooling. We don't need to be using our water resources for this type of industry. I'm also a member of the local REMC, and so I called out there to ask for their input on electric rates and is this going to increase our electric rates? They provided me a statement, which I'll give to Brent as well for your record, and any extras I'll leave back here in case anybody else wants to take a look at it or take pictures of it. So I really think, well, I mean, I'll tell you what, here, I can just read the comments that they gave me. So they said, the addition of large loads within northeastern REMC service territory presents significant opportunities and meaningful responsibilities for the cooperative. I mean, we're not a utility owned, we're member owned here, for the REMC, for everybody that's a REMC member. As an electric distribution cooperative, Northeastern REMC maintains a legal obligation to serve any load that materializes within its defined service territory. However, the cooperative retains considerable latitude in structuring the terms and conditions under which that service is provided. Large load additions such as this in Northeastern's territory will be required to ensure that their load is adequately covered by generation, either through contractual arrangements or through the addition of new physical generation. All associated costs, including capacity procurement, infrastructure investment, and any credited assurances necessary to protect the cooperative's financial position, will be the sole responsibility of the large load customer. So,
can you wrap it up in a minute?
Okay. Last paragraph. And REMC's existing membership will not be subject to the risks or costs attributable to these customers. At the same time, the substantial annual revenue generated by large loads will ensure that they are contributing their fair share to REMC's operating expenses, strengthening the cooperative's overall financial health, and ultimately benefiting the members as a whole. So that was the statement that they provided to me yesterday when I asked for it. So I will give a copy to Brent for the record, as well as my thoughts that I didn't get to in great detail. And I will leave all the other copies back here at the table if anybody wants a copy.
My name is John Carroll McCammon. My address is 718 West Wildwood Avenue, Fort Wayne, Indiana. I'm obviously not from Whitley County. I'm here to offer you a neighborly warning. You don't want one of these in your backyard. I can tell you for sure because there's one in my backyard. Allen County residents have seen their electric, not the rate, but their bills have gone up because we are paying for infrastructure build-outs for I&M to build more generation, because that site out there is going to be gobbling up 1,200 megawatts of power. The city eats 600. That thing is going to take up 40% of our current grid capacity. We just don't have the power, so they're going to have to build more gas turbines. Gas is getting more expensive right now. They're going to make you a whole bunch of promises. They're going to say, we're going to make you so many new jobs. They're promising 200 permanent jobs. Those permanent jobs, 150 of them are landscapers, custodians, stuff like that. The other 50 are going to be low-paid parts changers and level 1 technicians. The construction jobs, 60% of the electricians at that site are travelers, which means they're not from the IBEW local, which is like 4 counties wide. So you're getting guys from Chicago, Memphis, like all over the country coming in here. So if they're promising you construction jobs, yeah, there will be construction jobs. You people will not be getting them. Let's see, what else? Tax revenue. We gave them a 50% abatement. Don't give them any abatements. They want your land. If you let them here at all, take every red cent you can from them. I'm glad to hear that the cooperative will make them pay for their build out. Back to the power issue. For backup, Google has diesel generators. My math says about 600 megawatts worth. No filtration, no environmental protections. Whenever the grid tells them we can't take anymore, they're rolling coal on the whole county, which is bad for young people, old people, and sick people. They do not care about you. They do not care about your land. They do not care if you live or die. Do not let them come here.
Good evening, Joanne Knoll, 8099 South, 200 East, Columbia City. It was difficult to hear when Ms. Kurtzetzler asked the question in the beginning, and I didn't hear the answer at all. Really hard to hear back there in that corner. I believe you asked how restrictive we could be with an ordinance. So I have a map that I brought that I'll give to Brent. There's 2 counties in Indiana, Marshall and Cass, that have completely banned data centers. I would suggest we ban hyperscalers at the very least. There are 17 counties in Indiana that have placed a moratorium. I would also highly suggest that we do that. I would suggest a 1 year. I know that you have high hopes of getting an ordinance put together in the next 4, 5, 6 months. I've been through enough of these ordinance deals over the last 15 years. I know how long they take to get done, and I know how it goes back and forth. So you can put in a 1 year moratorium. You can always release the moratorium early if you get your ordinance finished. Brent said that we don't have anybody knocking on our door tonight. Put in a moratorium, and that way we don't have anybody knocking on our door while we're working on an ordinance. Another thing I would agree with is absolutely no tax abatements of any kind. These things are, the big ones especially, are multi-billion-dollar companies. They can afford to pay their fair share. Our state has already, if I remember this correctly, our state has already given the data center in Fort Wayne, and I believe any other data center, a 50-year break on, they don't pay sales tax on their electricity. That's a real slap in the face to every Hoosier that is struggling to pay a utility bill, and we pay sales tax on every kilowatt hour that we purchase. We're also struggling with property taxes in this state. How many millions of dollars have we given up by offering no sales tax to data centers on their electricity when it could be used for Hoosiers and helping us with our property tax issues and raising money in our counties? I have the map that I will leave with Brent. He can pass it out to you, make copies. I also brought from Delaware County, this is just, I got a couple of days ago, that is a list of baseline requirements that they think are absolutely necessary for any data center discussion that takes place in their county. I'll leave this with Brent as well. Thank you.
Hey, my name is Landon Lawhead. I'm also from Fort Wayne, where we are constructing a data center. And I'm here to kind of encourage you guys to nip this thing in the butt. I know you guys are having this meeting to talk about building like an airtight ordinance, to encourage, some sort of like ethical building of this data center. But I think the most airtight ordinance you can make is to follow counties like Marshall County that banned the thing outright. So in Fort Wayne, they started this whole deal under non-disclosures, right? Nobody knew anything about this, and it wasn't until recently that we started to be able to combat it with some of our fears. And nowhere along the process has Google been upfront about anything. They haven't addressed any of our concerns. They started the thing with 30 diesel generators that they weren't going to use, and now they want 175 diesel generators to generate this thing. And so there's no way that we can trust companies like Google or people producing these data centers to keep any of your best interests in mind, right? These things don't create jobs. They don't make a tangible product. There's no reason to house this thing in your county. And that's all I have to say.
Hi, Tammy Bowler, 6755 East Lincoln Way. I like a lot of the things I've heard thus far as like understanding the electric company, because Indiana, I called the, I talked to the Purdue Extension Office, and 75.5% of our land in Whitley County is farmland. That's not really conducive for these major operations. And I'm glad to hear that hyperspace data centers are not really what we're talking about here. We're talking about the gray area. But from what I've heard tonight, I think there should be a standard set that 100,000 would be the maximum, and hopefully we wouldn't have very many of those. And could you set a rule that because there are companies like SDI that already use a lot of utilities, that there would be no data centers built within a radius of a major established business, industrial business, because there's already enough light and noise pollution from those buildings. That's all I say. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Addie Pyatt. I live at 6735 East State Road 14. I would like to thank you guys for trying to get ahead of the game. I agree with a lot of what's been said here tonight. I'm also in favor of a moratorium, banning if possible. That's my vote. But in lieu of that, I would like to ask you guys, have you been to any of the controversial data centers yet? New Carlisle, Dowagiac, to actually physically be around them. If you have not, I would encourage you to do so. Talk to the residents who were there at the beginning of construction all the way to conclusion so that you have an idea, because that's what we may face. Also, no NDAs. If a company or person comes in here and can't be honest, they don't belong here. Also, LLCs. LLCs, they come in, they sign the paperwork, and then here we find out that's what happened in New Haven, bait and switch. We don't need that here either. I am not anti-business. I also agree with no tax abatements. Indiana's lost $665 million already due to abatements with the sales tax and use. Water, of course, finite resource. Fire safety. If we have lithium-ion battery usage and we have a fire, then we have thermal runaway. Is our fire department classified to fight such fires and with the hazardous materials inside the smoke plume? Is that able to be contained by the community? Litigation, verbiage, and lawsuits happen, and I'm glad you guys are doing ordinances. Verbiage gets misconstrued willfully. These companies have money to fight. They got money in their pockets. They have lawyers in their pockets. Do we have the money as a county to go to court and win if something comes in here? Because if we don't, you guys obviously don't have your heads in the sand. You're watching the news. You're being proactive. I love that. But what's happening? They come in, they get established, and it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission, and they have the money to pay the fines. Decommissioning. Technology is moving fast. AI is moving fast. Do we have a plan in place in your ordinance for decommissioning? Because if the bonds expire, a TIF district, whatever we have, and they leave, by the time they're done building, what's inside could be obsolete. So are we left holding the bag with the bonds? Are we left cleaning up the site, remediation, that type of thing? I think that's important. I agree with the jobs. Union jobs. Unions have boundaries, not just Whitley County. So looking at the job aspect, I think that's kind of a moot point. Probably not going to bring a whole lot. But we are a farming community. A lot of people have been in this county for over 100 years. And I think the character of our community deserves a lot of respect. I would also like to ask you, like I said, with the moratorium, get with experts. And I like the fact that you guys have things from other counties and other areas. Get non-biased scientific experts on this. Get their data as you go through your ordinance, and ask people in counties who it's failed on them and also who have succeeded. Thank you.
Appreciate you having me here today. My name is Steven Rizzo, and I'm a resident of Columbia City. I want to talk about some of the reasons why I'm against data centers in Whitley County. I believe we need to have more transparency on our energy and water infrastructure here in Whitley County. How are we going to add a data center when the public does not know the limits of our infrastructure? We do not have accurate public data regarding our energy production, let alone water. According to gridinfo.com, Whitley County obtains all of its energy through solar power. The problem is solar power, on an average, produces energy only 12 hours a day. Data centers consume energy 24 hours of the day. Solar panels do not collect energy at a fixed rate. The efficiency of the solar panels is dependent on the weather. Still, even with these rough numbers in perfect condition, our energy production would be around 106.5 megawatts, according to my sources. For example, the data center in Fort Wayne, also known as Project Zodiac, consumes 400 megawatts at peak, and averages around 260 to 300 megawatts. If we implemented a data center similar or bigger to the data center in Fort Wayne, which is 892 acres, our energy grid would be overwhelmed, and we would especially foot the bill in energy costs. Well, this means everyone's utility bill would go up. And I'm not even counting the costs of water consumption and pollution costs. The data centers in Indiana do not pay sales nor energy taxes according to Indiana Code Section 6-2.515. Quote, the data center gross retail and use tax exemption provides a sales and use tax exemption on purchases of qualifying data center equipment and energy to operators of a qualified data center for a period not to exceed 25 years for data center investments of less than $750 million. If the investment exceeds $750 million, the data center in Fort Wayne is $2 billion, mind you. The IEDC may award an exception for up to 50 years, tax exemption. Local governments may also provide a personal property tax exemption on qualified enterprise information technology equipment to the owners of a data center who invest at least $25 million in real and personal property in the facility. I would say, if you want to see the long-term consequences of data centers, I want you to look upon the regions that have been impacted. Oregon, Georgia, Northern Virginia, the pollution, the quality of the water, the noise pollution. I am against data centers in our community because there are better ways to create jobs instead of surrendering our resources to massive corporations. Thank you.
I'm Bob Parrott, 853 Hawthorne Lane, Columbia City. And I vote no because the water here sucks already. Right? Am I right? We get more stuff here. It's going to tear it up. I mean, property taxes are high, utilities are high. And we get them in, we're going to be paying their shit. So that's all I can say.
Hi, Damon Brown, 318 North Washington Street, Columbia City. I agree with many of the other people who have spoken here, especially on the land use, the water use, energy use. Also want to talk about me being, as a person who's enjoyed tech throughout my life and been a bit of a techie, and I work with some high tech every day. It is important, but this data center or any large scale data center in Whitley County isn't going to bring anything to the county. It's not going to help us generate funny videos of our cats any faster. It's not going to help us at work any much more than it does already. It's trained on data that we fed it over years of talking on Facebook and Messenger. It's all of our data that's being regurgitated back to us. There is use in the technology if it's applied to the right training data in the right use cases. You could train it in your factory on the way that you work and find efficiencies in order to train people to work in better tech level jobs. These things aren't going to bring us any extra jobs. They're not going to train anybody to do anything more. Another point I wanted to talk about is the decommissioning of these facilities. Once this massive tech boom hype bursts, these facilities could be shuttered, and they've already irreparably done the damage to the water and the land. They're purpose-built facilities. They won't be easy to retrofit in any way. You can't just clean them out and stand up a factory in them. So our zoning codes must require, if we have to build any of these things, that they be fully funded, legally binding decommissioning bonds prior to any permits being placed. Thanks.
Good evening. My name's Joan Klein, and my address is 4585 West 300 South in Whitley County. First of all, why are we even having this meeting to consider a data center in Whitley County? Shame, shame, shame. Consider. Do you know where the proposed location will be and the size? There is an economic impact on this, but there's a bigger environmental impact on these data centers. It's proven the noise decibels go way beyond the limit, and there's groundwater that is getting consumed by these data centers, and along with the noise pollution. 17 diesel generators going at once couldn't be a very good environmental impact. And I would also like to suggest, as other counties in the state have put a ban on data centers, Whitley County should really consider it. Thank you.
My name is Mike Smith. I live in New Haven, Indiana. We've had a front row seat to this data center in Allen County. And what upsets me the most is how the state and governmental agencies turn a blind eye to these things. They filled in 20 acres of wetlands with no concern to the wildlife whatsoever. They're going to run these generators, 175 of them sitting on top of 6,000 gallons each, with no retention whatsoever if they have a spill. They have nothing on them to scrub the exhaust. It's blowing out right in the air. I've dealt with item before in a body shop with just a spray gun. And these guys are only supposed to run these generators 100 hours a year or less to test. Their generators have been running 24/7 for the last 8 weeks because their doggone power station is not completely up to speed yet. And that's just with what they've got going so far. They lie, they cheat, they keep everything under the table, and IDEM and the rest of the agencies are turning a blind eye to this. And we're going to be the ones paying for this in the end. When these guys go bankrupt and they leave, we're stuck with the mess. Thank you.
My name is Michael Filosa, 3702 South 600 East, Columbia City. I came up here because I didn't hear a lot of environmental, but the last two. I'm an avid bird watcher, prairie restorer, tree hugger, maybe, I don't know. But I don't know how familiar with, Lights Out campaign is. How many birds strike because they're going migration north and south in May, north, south in about September, and they use the moon to navigate where they're going. Well, the Lights Out campaign is because we kill millions of birds every year because of light pollution. So a lot of big cities, Chicago, New York, they say turn off the lights during this time, and it really lowers the death of birds. And then another thing I wanted to talk about was, Google came in Fort Wayne, and they got approval, but they just kept asking for more, because once they got in, it was a lot harder to say no once you've already told them yes. So we have to keep that in mind when who's going to say no to them? They've got the money to fight it. There was this, I don't know exactly what city it was in Michigan, but they didn't have the money to fight it, and they just wouldn't build it anyways. So, I mean, it's something to think about. You might have all the ordinances. They've got the money. I say no data centers whatsoever.
Hello, my name is Gerald Vandeveer. Just moved from Fort Wayne to here, and then now you guys are putting one in here thinking about it. I'll tell you what, there's an ocean of money out there. All you gotta do is figure out how to get it. If you're trying to get money, get it another way. This is not what... The things you're giving up, we need people with strong backbones. We need people with spines that care about our community. What you're giving up is not this. You're giving up your community. You're giving up your wildlife. You're giving up your water. You're giving up everything around you that you love that makes this Columbia City. This is just going to be what? Why don't they put it in Silicon Valley? Why aren't they putting it somewhere else? Because the land's cheap. And they're hoping we're suckers and we're going to let them put it in. What do you think happens to the water once they suck it all out of the ground? Think they're going to cut pipelines in of water or something? No. They're not going to do anything. They're going to move to another place with some suckers who are going to let them put this stuff in. It's not for our benefit. I work for a $5 billion private equity firm. I know the lies that are told. I know the beautiful, oh, guess what? We're going to do all these great things. We're going to build up your community. What exactly are they going to build up in the community? What do they need in our community with a data center? Nothing. It's going to serve people in Las Vegas. It's going to serve people in other places in this country that have nothing to do with us. There's these giant lines that run through the ground. OC12 loops, all our backbones, Time Warner, all those things. Why aren't they going over there where those are? Chicago and stuff? Because they're not going to let them in. They can't do it. They've got a Great Lake there. We have nothing. You're going to destroy everything that makes this community great. Beautiful high school, the beautiful everything in this community is going to go to trash. Those things are so loud. So loud. It drives away wildlife. It just, you're going to destroy it. We need you guys to have spines and say no. Yeah. We need it. Desperately.
Hello, my name is Dan Shinneman, 712 West Legion Drive here in Columbia City. Simple question, why? Why do we want this thing here, these things here, all over the place? Why do we want that? What advantages are going to be for Whitley County to do all these things that all these other fine people have come up with, and why we don't want it here? But you tell me why. What is the average person in this county going to gain by having this here? That's the question we need answered. What are we going to get for it? It seems as though there's a lot of things that are against it. So is there what is the advantage to it? Are there parties in this county that are going to get the gain from that themselves? Makes one wonder.
My name is Cindy Strack, and I live at 3125 East Butler Court. And I have one question that's just burning in my mind is why would this board have a meeting, 2 meetings, before even involving the community? You know, it's like, it's an afterthought. We have to listen to the community. Not that you're going to listen to us or do what we want. Put it on a referendum and let everybody vote on it.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity for all of us to express our opinions. And to me, just listening, I hadn't planned on speaking, but I've been thinking about this.
Can you state your name really fast?
Oh, yes, excuse me. Diana DuPont, and I live at 1676 South 700 East in Columbia City. And to me, it seems like we're at a crossroads, a pretty serious crossroads, like we were with the solar debate. And who do we want to be? That was what we asked ourselves. We looked at our plan that you all so diligently devised with Brent and with Nathan and all your good staff, and decided that we wanted to maintain our agricultural nature, our character. And I noticed that in the comments tonight, a lot of people mentioned we are a farming community, and can we somehow make sure that that is top of mind as you proceed? And one of the things, that's what I mean about a crossroads. Where are we going next? Can we honor what you have already done and put in writing about our future? But the thing that's bothering me is that I have heard that if you don't do an ordinance, that the state can, and I don't know the answer, I'm just sharing what I heard, that the state could come in and perhaps say, you know, you need to do something. In other words, you could be overridden. So that's the reason why you don't do any bans. So I don't know, but other counties have done bans, I guess. So that's a question I have, is how is that handled? Just so do you all think that we should at least kind of, seems like the sentiment overwhelmingly is negative. So do we do something that's pretty minimal so that we can say we have an ordinance and we have played ball? Or can you, as other people have said, just ban it? That I just have no idea about that. That's in your bailiwick, but it is a question I have.
can we just outright ban them? And would it stick? Thank you so much for what you're doing.
Hello, my name is Aaron McDivitt. I live at 8333 South, 350 West South Whitley. Probably not going to make a whole ton of friends with what I'm about to say. Understand that, but not that I'm pro anything or anti anything, but I understand what you guys are trying to do here is to set up an ordinance so that you can address it in the future. And when somebody comes up and says they want to ban data centers after we've already defined data centers as some place where servers sit, I also run businesses. I'm a pastor of a church. We have servers. Those are data centers. You can't just carte blanche ban data centers. If the intent is about the hyper data centers, I have worked inside of those. I have NDAs in place. Those that are asking about NDAs, I'd be happy to explain to you why those companies have NDAs in place. So I can't talk specifically about some of the designs. I would share concerns with everybody else about bringing in a data center. But I just want to address a couple of topics. One, job creation. When we said, and people have come up and said there's no job creation. I was formerly the CEO of a company that did millions of dollars of work in the Tri-County area for Whitley County people that worked there for data centers in other parts of the country. There's no data center in Whitley County, but we employed quite a few employees who worked in Whitley County who were doing work for data centers in the heat exchange world. So job creation isn't just about that construction and leave. There's things that go on inside of other jobs that need to be considered at the same time. So, we've talked about the closed loop system. I think there are things that you need to put in place, most definitely to restrict them. Absolutely, it shouldn't be carte blanche, just come in, do whatever you want. As far as Google having all the money, I know for a fact I've been on Google at least a dozen times today. If you really want to help the situation, then you got to attack that. You want to talk about them having the money. I mean, I'm carrying it with me right now. I run 3 businesses. One of them's an e-commerce business. Yeah, they have the money, and we're the reason they do. So keep that in mind when we're hating on data centers, because they're going to go somewhere. They're going to go somewhere. I'm also a farmer. I don't think they need to go in. I'm not saying they need to go in Whitley County. I'm just saying that they're going to go somewhere. Just keep that in mind when you're putting your ordinance together. The hyper data center may not fit here, but you got to put something together that makes sense so that you guys can say yes or no when they do come knocking. You guys have already said there's nobody knocking on the door now. I don't know if everybody heard that, but I appreciate what you guys are doing here in our input. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Linda Maury. I live at 1267 South Sherman Street here in Columbia City. I agree with everything that's been pretty much said. I know this is a hearing to give public input. I appreciate your efforts in the future, because I've been on a zoning board myself, and there's steps that have to be followed, and this is something that can't be done overnight. That's why I would encourage maybe looking at a moratorium until you have ordinances in place. They would be very helpful in your situation to protect Whitley County. One thing that, you have to question is, why is there all this discussion regarding data centers, and why are they being built, and why do we have to have so many, especially the hyper building ones? But the U.S., I did a little research, and the U.S. has more than 4,000 active data centers. That's roughly half the world's capacity. China only has 350 to 430 data centers. Canada has as many as China. Mexico has fewer. So why does the U.S. need so many data centers, especially these mammoth ones like Google and Amazon and all the others? I have my suspicions, but all government agencies need to take a step back. Consider the welfare and the health of the constituents who elected them. Consider the massive impact on land and water, and take the time to conduct a deep investigation into any and all proposals and make those restrictions. And I think you've got kind of a rough draft in place, and I encourage you to continue to work on that. I encourage you to continue to have public hearings to keep people informed on what you're going to be discussing and what you're planning. And I think everybody would be supportive in your efforts. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jerry Bickle, 5180 East Little Turtle Trail, Columbia City. As she mentioned already, U.S. has ample supply of data centers already. They outnumber all the countries in the world by far. China goes a different approach than these mega data centers. They go a decentralized approach. So you talked about these small scale data centers that companies already have, their servers. You classify their servers as data centers. So I don't think we're trying to infringe on businesses having their own servers to do their work. But I think we're against these mega data centers or even half mega data centers. Why don't we have a decentralized approach? And if we do that, you need to have health environment rules for these companies to protect their employees, right? Like the noise level. If you're locked in that environment, that's not good. So you got to think about the employees working in these environments too. That's all I have to say.
Hi, my name is Lyle Barron. I live at 1746 West Old Trail Road. I won't come back up here and reiterate what everyone else has said. I think we've all heard a lot of good points about the environment and everything that's been brought up. The reason I came up to talk, I had no intention of speaking tonight. Something that's kind of crossed my mind that has kind of been touched on but not brought to a head is I hope when we're voting on these things, we're not thinking of ourselves but the future generations. I think most people here have children that live in this community or grandchildren, and as many people have stated, this is a farmer community. I myself am not a farmer, but I've grown up around them. I know many of them, and one of I think the largest things that makes them stand out from any other group of people is caring about their own, caring about their children and the future generations that will live here and carry on their legacy. So I hope that as we're coming up with these ordinances to kind of take a handle on these data centers, that we take stock in what our future is, and not our future, but the future of our children and grandchildren. What we do here will have consequences. Now, whether that's good through taxes or job creations, or whether that's bad, is there going to be a place to call home, to call Columbia City by the time we have great-grandchildren? I'm 22 years old. I was born here, and I've lived here my entire life, and I hope that the rest of my family will continue to do the same. I think this board is the people that have the right to protect that. I hope that they make the decisions that are necessary for all of us. It's not only my home, everybody else's home, but it's also your guys' home. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Keelan Stewart. I live out on Route 5 by State Road 14. Just here to throw out some statistics I've seen from other counties in the area. As technology advances and computing demands grow, data centers are becoming increasingly energy hungry, as we all know. A single modern AI data center can use as much power as 100,000 homes. Many of the larger ones now being built are expected to consume up to 20 times that amount, says the World Resource Institute. With the rise of AI data centers also comes the rise of power usage. These data centers do not pay for themselves. Columbia City's residents pay an average of $134 on their monthly electric bill. So that's going to be like $13.61 per kilowatt hour. Both statistics come from Fine Energy. Sources are seeing that increase of 200% on all electric boards across the counties and cities where AI data centers are being built, and some environmental impacts. AI data centers, they require a lot more of our natural resources compared to non-AI related data centers. With the rapid expansion of AI data centers, one singular building is projected to require about 32 billion gallons of water annually, according to the World Resources Institute. This is enough to support roughly 360,000 households, their indoor water use, not to mention small towns are even more threatened by this. Countryside residents are reporting low water pressure or brown water in most areas. These AI data centers pull directly from wells or water tables, using almost the entirety of its supply. Fieldreport.edu states that many data centers obtain water for multiple groundwater wells or directly from aquifers, a body of permeable rock which can contain a transmit groundwater. Heavy pumping can lower groundwater levels, particularly in drought-prone or heavily developed regions. Potential consequences include reduced drinking water availability. No AI data centers did not start the water crisis many of us are worried about, but it is a huge stepping stone for a path to limited freshwater nationwide. We cannot allow these centers to keep taking from us like this. Every living thing on this earth needs fresh and clean water to survive. Construction itself has to be managed very carefully. A lot of data centers are being built on wetlands and farmlands, destroying the natural environment around us. Quote, for example, an Amazon data center designed specifically for AI scheduled for construction in New Carlisle, Indiana, which was mentioned earlier. It sits about 1,200 acres. That is nearly the same size as the entire town itself. The Amazon data center in New Carlisle will destroy approximately 10 acres of wetlands and be permanently built on farmland. So habitat loss in the form of wetlands, farmland, and forest is a major impact of the construction phase. If not carefully designed and placed, the data centers can have a negative impact on the underlying environment. In addition, water pollution, water flow disruption, and noise pollution are also environmental impacts of the construction phase. And that's from the Hoosier Environmental Council. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Charles Owen. I live at 7544 North Maple Lane here in Columbia City. I just want to kind of cover some general facts. I know there's a lot of opinion been expressed tonight. One of my questions is, as you go through your ordinances, who's going to regulate DC power generation? Who regulates it? Okay. It's been published that utility companies can't meet the electricity demands for both the public and the data centers at reasonable costs, and companies are deciding what their energy sources will be. So I want to talk a little bit about energy sources. You know, in a Data Center Pulse magazine about the Google Pine Island data center up in Minnesota, Google partnered with Xcel Energy in a landmark electric service agreement that adds a staggering 1,900 megawatt new, quote, new clean energy to Minnesota grid. Well, what does that include? It includes a 1,400 megawatt wind system, a 200 megawatt solar system that has to be built out, which requires then more land required by the utility company just to try to help supplement the energy requirements that Google's going to need for their Pine Island facility. So beyond just your ordinance as far as what kind of power generation you're going to have, what is going to be the download or the downstream impact to Columbia City utilities. Okay, and I don't know if the information was correct. Somebody said that we get all of our utility power through solar. I don't know if that's correct or not. I think that was correct. So technically, the Pine Island campus, the Pine Island campus, is designed for the AI era. It features a zero water cooling architecture, a response to the community environment concerns by utilizing what they call dry cooling, which, by the way, is not energy efficient. If you're not going to do water cooling, you're going to do dry cooling. You need massive turbines to cool those systems, which again is going to require even more energy generation. So that's another factor when you're looking at a closed loop system or air systems to as far as how your ordinance is concerned, as far as what that energy requirement going to be as you're looking for them to tell you what the energy requirements are. In New Jersey, residents have seen significant rise in energy bills. According to a CBS article in 2025, AI is driving up electric bills in New Jersey at the rate of about 20%. Okay? So that's just a quip. You can look at. I've got a reference here if you want to look it up. So what will the power or energy source for the DC and Whitley County? So what are some of the choices we have or that you're going to see? Diesel generators, which has been talked about a lot tonight. Approximately 73% of all data centers backup systems use diesel. Well, diesel generator capacities, are nearly tripled in the last 5 years. Diesel units are allowed. We know, we've heard that. Political headwinds change, though, and stricter regulatory conditions are imminent when results in higher maintenance costs. So one last point I'd like to make, if I could have just one more minute, and I'll skip through the end of this, is I would ask you, answer the question with them. What's in it for me? If these data centers are going to require energy, and we know that safe nuclear energy is on the horizon in 3 to 5 years,
And if a small nuclear reactor will actually generate enough electricity to power all the population in Montana, why not use this source to supplement our utility bills? If these guys are going to generate energy for their data centers, why shouldn't they include the energy that we need as citizens in our communities to just pay our utility bills? That's my point. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Good evening, Anthony Shalais, 5770 North Etna Road. I've heard a lot of great discussion tonight, and a lot of things have been brought up. The power, the water, all these things are issues. But I haven't heard a risk analysis. And I haven't heard, like he just said, what benefit to the county and what benefit to the people. And another thing somebody brought up, who are we and what's the risk analysis to who we are and who we want to be? Because I haven't heard any of that. And without a good risk analysis and without why, what benefit are we getting from this? All I've heard is it's going to deplete our resources and hurt our environment. So those are the questions I need to have answered. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
My name is Bruce Hazelet. I live at 3651 South Washington Road. I've lived there a long time. And I was really happy to hear about the young people and the references made to young people. There's young people, because my kids went to school with you. There's other people in here that taught my kids. I came here because I had a job half again that far away from Fort Wayne where my wife worked. So this was splitting the difference. And we moved out in the country and oh my God, what a change. Every day when I got home from that 20-mile drive, I looked down my driveway and thought, boy, it's gorgeous across the road. At the Eel River where Indians walked 200 years ago. Remember her name, Frances Slocum? Or did you guys get taught that in school? Well, I don't have all the facts and figures. I just have a picture in my mind of this county and how much it meant to me to get home to it after 10 hours at work. And looking across the street at what could have been solar panels if it wasn't for you guys. That made me sick. I'd have left. That made that much difference to me. This place is beautiful. It's what it should stay. Don't let it change. If you want to see what I'm talking about, go down towards Indy, drive 38 to 32 between Lebanon and Crawfordsville, and see how they tore the hell out of that area to put in a supreme data center. Thanks.
I want to just kind of piggyback off that. Boone County, my son lives down there, and he
Can you
sees.
state your name,
Oh,
please?
I'm sorry, Trudy Lipley, 3420 West Hill Drive, Columbia City. And he lives in an apartment complex, and the construction workers that are working on the Leap Center, they're working on that data center down there. They're working on Eli Lilly. They live in Texas. And so they live during the week and work on this building, all this building during the week. They live in Whitestown, and then they go home on the weekends. So that the construction that they tell you those jobs are coming, that's not always true. And also on transparency, Chuck Goodrich is our Commerce Secretary, and he's the CEO of Gaylor Electric, who's putting in a lot of these data centers. So I guess I just want to keep that in mind if Gaylor Electric comes around, because that's our Commerce Secretary. So I don't know if that's a conflict of interest. If you have somebody that's our Commerce Secretary, that's something to kind of think about. I guess that's something we probably ought to keep in mind. And I just want to say what everybody else has said. This is a great county. We want to keep it good. We don't want to see data centers across the street. But this is a great area. I've lived here my whole life, and we want to keep it nice. And we've elected you to do the right thing. And I know it's not going to be an easy decision, but we appreciate what you do. But we want to keep in mind what has made this county great. And I really appreciate the people from Fort Wayne and New Haven coming. That was awesome. That's all I have, but thank you.
I'm Barbara Pettit. I live at 1338 West Stone Ridge Drive, Columbia City. My thought is on a more personal level. I bought a home for a person in my family, and I sold that home to them on land contract. That home was on 7707 East Tillman Road, the backside of the Google Center. Because I was still the property owner, I was involved with the onset of all of the secrecy that they had. By the time they brought in the public to tell us what was happening, I'm sure they'd already purchased the farmland. And it was, at that time, over 860 acres. They bought that farmland. You had old farmers that just wanted to retire and let it go because their children didn't want to farm. And it's true about those wetlands that they took. The Indiana Department of Environmental Management has a place where you can sign up if you have a property there, or if you had a local or regional government entity that was interested. You get warnings of what's coming, and they're correct. Everything I've heard tonight was correct. They start out slow, and then they ask for all of these other things, like taking a wetland, draining it so they can use it. They closed down Paulding Road because they needed that space. There was a railroad track nearby. There was a stream, and it's all going to be gone. And it takes 7 to 10 years to build those great big data centers, they told us. I have the schematics at home that shows all the buildings, and they have a berm ground built up on the back side of it all around. On top of that is a huge fence. I'm not sure if it's 8 to 10 feet fence. And on top of that is supposed to be barbed wire. It's a closed system. My property was in the back side of it. It took me 2 years to get it to sell it to them because they bought every property in lots. There was like 4 in my row, and we just couldn't wait to get rid of it because the noise pollution, the light pollution, once they start, it's there forever. And I felt so sorry for my family because they had to give up their forever home. They thought they actually had a place in the country where they could hear the birds, see the farms. If my property had been on the other side of the road, they wouldn't have bought it. They only bought the people close by that was touching their properties. And mine was on the backside. They paid me over 2 times what I paid for that house 6 years ago. The front part of those data centers property, they got a lot more money because they're more visible. It's such a nasty thing out there. You would not believe it. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Neil Wilkinson, 8440 West, 400 South. My first question to you, are you offering tax incentives to these companies to come here?
That wouldn't be a plan commission decision.
This isn't a Q&A. We're not set up for that. This is a listening session. So you can address us with.
It says it up on the second line.
This. I stand by my
But that's
statement.
fine.
This isn't a
That's
Q&A.
fine. That's fine.
Whatever that says, I have made
But
myself
anyway,
clear.
here's
So
the reason.
move ahead.
Georgia, very good example to pay attention to. Tax incentives played a major role in Georgia's rise as a data center hub. Chief among them is state sales and use tax exemptions for qualifying data centers. However, this incentive faced increased scrutiny. A 2022 state audit revealed that Georgia recoups only 24 cents on the dollar for each incentivized project, raising concerns among lawmakers about whether the economic return justifies the public cost. So is there an ROA on it? So here's what Georgia's changed. They've changed the laws to where the data center pays its fair share of the electricity. Their Public Service Commission approved creation of a new tariff class to ensure large load customers, particularly data centers, pay proportionally for their electricity use without shifting costs to the residential or small business ratepayers. There's other things I'd love to get into, but no time, and other people have done an amazing job. As far as costs, we can use New Jersey from NewJersey.com. They're averaging a $260 per household raise is anywhere there around a data center. Ben Green, a professor at Michigan University, his policy solutions we could go into. I'll just go into the increased rates. Data centers increase local electric rates by driving up overall energy demand, which can strain grid capacity and force utilities to invest in costly infrastructure upgrades. These costs are passed on to the residents through higher rates. Data centers have also secured long-term power agreements, which reduce the available supply and push prices up to other consumers. I wanted to have a little fun, so I went on to AI to see what their answers were for do data centers raise the price of electricity for customers. ChatGPT, the short answer is they can increase local electricity costs, but whether the residents actually pay more depends on the utility regulations, power supply conditions, and who is assigned the cost of new infrastructure. Perplexity AI, several analysis and news pieces, same thing. The API, same thing. I challenge you to listen to the people who you serve. Thank you for your time.
Good evening. My name is Katie Jacobier Street. I'm at 4419 North Etna Road in Columbia City. I am for a moratorium, like solidly. I don't think that we need to have a window where anybody can step into it. So a moratorium would be really helpful to mitigate that. Also, I was against all data centers, but understanding more now that local businesses use them, I can see why they're important. I've changed my position on that by hearing people speak about that. But the large scale data centers are useless in our community. They don't need to be in our community at all. So I'm totally against the large scale data centers. But we do need a very solid ordinance set up so that our community is protected, so our farmers are protected, so the land and the environment is protected. I would like a cap on utility usage. If there is a data center, I'd like a cap for that. Utilities and water, electricity, any of that. Well, I think there was a graph that was showing like a red and a blue zone. I'd like to be closer to the blue zone, I think. That's just where I stand. I don't really have any data to share with you. I'm sure you already know most of that. But yep, moratorium and then very small scale data centers at the max is what I'd like.
Hi, I'm Denise Whirling, 75, or no, gonna give the wrong address, 2406 West Harborside Drive, Fort Wayne. And I guess, of course, I'm with them. A moratorium for the large data centers definitely feel is needed. But for the small scale, for the businesses, I guess what I'm looking at is you mentioned closed loop waste removal. How often is that going to be done? Is it annual, biannual, monthly, depending on the scale? I think it's something that needs to be addressed when something's being looked at to determine what's the plan. Do they have everything in place so that they know where it's going to go? And are there consequences if they end up doing it more than normal? I also feel there needs to be something put in place that there are not non-disclosure agreements that are ever allowed among any of the members of the board. Like what happened in Fort Wayne. Don't want to see that. You know, of course, agree, issues with water usage, lighting, noise, all of those as have been mentioned, but definitely looking at the closed loop waste removal, and also are there going to be plans if they have a data center for removal of, as things age out, what are their plans to get rid of hazardous materials? Those kind of things should be on the table if they're coming in for approval. Thanks.
Hello, my name is Danielle Depke. My home is less than 5 miles away from the, I don't know why I'm getting so emotional right now, from the nearly 900-acre Google data center campus in Allen County. If you would like to learn more about the data center in Fort Wayne and the legal appeal that has been filed on behalf of all Allen County residents, please visit fwdatacenteraction.wordpress.com. I would also like to echo what my neighbors in Allen County and New Haven have already said. We were promised that the data center project would have a low impact on the surrounding residents and environmental concerns were the highest priority. Those promises quickly vanished once the land agreement was signed. The project's scope drastically increased. 36 industrial diesel fuel generators quickly jumped to 179. Google is allowed to store over 1 million gallons of diesel fuel on site. Every year, Google is permitted to emit 244 tons of nitrogen oxides, 244 tons of carbon monoxide, and 244 tons of volatile organic materials into our air. This data center location is next to schools that serve prepubescent children, working class, low-income people, and families who live in established neighborhoods with ancestral homes, daycares, churches, farms. This heavy industrial campus is in the backyards of people who are being forced to choose between potentially being exposed to toxic, carcinogenic air and water pollutants or flee their homes. This single data center campus near my home is estimated to consume over 720 million gallons of clean drinking water per year. I say estimated because our city utilities aligned with Google to file with the Indiana Utility Regulatory Committee to hide their water usage data. City Utilities tells us to our face that they'll only use surface water to supply the data center, but then they file paperwork with the state to say that they would like to explore groundwater extraction. We were told that our utility rates would not increase and that large data centers help keep rates down. We are still being told that, even though our water usage rates have indeed increased, all while the city is hiding the rates that they are charging large load consumers like Google. Google has destroyed and permanently altered numerous wetlands and waterways. Ecosystems and wildlife habitats have been annihilated. The state-level Indiana Department of Environmental Management has approved every permit submitted to them by Google, despite public outcry and submitted scientific evidence. To the people of Whitley County, you must not cease in the pressure you place on your leaders. Please continue to show up to in-person meetings, send emails, make phone calls, and stay vigilant. It is our responsibility to fight for ourselves and our neighbors. I'm almost done, I promise. If you value peace and quiet, being able to breathe clean air, to cook, drink, and bathe yourself with clean water. If you value protecting and preserving life, then you must continue to raise your voices and refuse to back down. Remember what you are fighting for. To the leaders of Whitley County, do not be swayed by the shiny promises and the lure of money. Do not sell out the people who you are charged to serve. Do not be complicit in the destruction of our environment, the health of our bodies, and the quality of life for future generations. Be bold and brave and be the protectors of people. Pass a moratorium and do not allow any large or hyperscale data center projects in your county. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Amy Carfelds, 8311 East US Highway 33, Cherubusco. Everyone pretty much covered, everything that I was already thinking. I'm not gonna get into the whole tree hugging thing.
Yeah, stand closer to the microphone, please.
Sorry. My family, I've been here about like 10 years, and I come from farming families in Ohio, like generational, from Van Wert, Paulding, Defiance County. They are fighting for their lives right now. My family has been there for, they like drained the Great Black Swamp. Okay, so like I go to the churches and there's streets named after my family, and they're losing everything, because of NDAs. So they are building out legal development right now. There should be a complete ban on NDAs as far as economic development is concerned, as far as county tax dollars are concerned. The public cannot make informed choices as long as that little legal loophole is being abused, and it's being abused. Like I have family that they're getting ready to lose their stuff by eminent domain. They're getting ready, and they didn't even know about any of it until the land was already purchased, until deals were already done. Is it really democracy if you can abuse non-disclosure agreements and like hide information from the public? I really hope that Whitley County isn't doing that, because they've been doing that in Van Wert. They've been doing that in Paulding. They've been doing that in Defiance County. And people who have generations of families are losing everything because of it. I think that there should be a ban. I hope that with your ordinances and everything else, that you ban non-disclosure agreements as far as economic development and taxpayer funding and zoning, all of it. Like they shouldn't be able to abuse that. They shouldn't. And that's pretty much all I have to say. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Zoe Whitaker at 117 Rolling Hills Avenue. I'm 21 years old. I currently go to college, and every time I come back, I am so proud of the development that Columbia City has made. Every time I come back, every year, I see something new in our community, and I am proud of it. And I'm so proud of how far we have come, and just seeing how passionate of a community we have is a privilege, and seeing how many voices have come out, have done their well-due research, people from other communities. I implore you to look at the best interests of Columbia City. I am 21. I'm at an age where I'm looking for a place to live. And I implore you to look at the consequences of what data centers could look like. I know I'm so excited to do more research on these topics and to be more well educated on this, as I know you guys are as well. And so seeing some of the risks, understanding that we're still learning the long-term effects, the place I want to live, I want to have good air quality. I want to have good water quality. I want to have low noise levels. And so looking at how much time and effort we have put into developing Columbia City, we cannot lose that. We don't want people to be discouraged or leave Columbia City when we have spent so much time on building up a community here. So I implore you to listen to the voices here, listen to the well-educated people who have come here with their ideas, and look at the future of Columbia City and who you want to live here and how you want to keep this community. I
I want you guys to prioritize community passion and voices over any monetary value.
Jamie Branning, 326 North Walnut Street. The only thing I have to say is, why did you guys want to be on the board? No, seriously. What brought you to basically want to serve the community? I'm sure it was for the good. And so, I want to say, you got to think about your legacy. Your name. How's it going to be when you pass away? What is people going to say about you? Are they going to say, man, that guy was a jerk? You know, that was a great guy. You know, you guys got to think about that. You know, do you want this to be like a bad tattoo? You know, that you regret? Seriously. It's like, yeah, I made a decision, but woo, woke up. You know? Seriously. Do you want to look back in the past and go, damn, wish I didn't do that? Just think about that. All right? I mean, I already got 4 tattoo shops around this place. Seen a lot at Old Settlers. You know, I'm sure everybody's treated on that freak show. You know?
Okay, let's stay on topic. Okay. Anyone else? Make your way to the podium. Let's keep this moving, please.
My name's Sean Locker, and I live at 4260 East Hartman Road. And I own a business that's dependent on water, and I'm very concerned about how data centers would affect the water quality. And I'm also concerned about light pollution. I'm concerned about noise pollution. I do value the agricultural nature of our county. I've heard that data centers can have very adverse effects on livestock. I don't believe that data centers are going to be beneficial to providing decent jobs in our community. And I appreciate all the people that came from Allen County to tell us about their experience. And I think there should be no non-disclosure agreements. You know, I think that the concern about, do we have the equipment to deal with an emergency situation that could arise in a data center? I think that's a very valid concern. I think if we're going to have them, I think they're a necessity. However, I think the large and medium sized data centers are not beneficial to this community. I think there should be a 1-year moratorium. And I don't think that these billion-dollar and probably trillion-dollar companies, I don't think they need any tax breaks. I think that they can support themselves, and if anything, you know, they just shouldn't be here. So thank you very much.
I'm George Locker and I live at 4260 East Hartman Road. For future references, I would like to, as you saw, there's a lot of people at the meeting today. Like have a meeting at like Columbia City High School in the gym or in the theater, because you know there's going to be a lot of people at these meetings. For the list below, I would like for the community to get paper like knowledge or overall thing for these current questions in more detail with truth and transparency. What would be the benefits and downsides of building data centers? Will taxes and electricity go up once the data centers are built, and water bills too? What would water quality would be, and how much water would these data centers use every day? Where would these data centers be built, and will it affect the surrounding people, like farmers, livestock, crops, and other industries? What would the data centers do to, like, I've already said crop, but like crops, trees, and plants and stuff like that, and the natives and the wildlife stuff too. But these are kind of my general concerns and things I've kind of come up with outside the list. But how would they affect farmers? Would you guys have a 1-year moratorium, which I would suggest establishing one, that way we can get this done properly and get everything in without putting it into a hurry. If we do get data centers built here, I would like to have a map and know ahead and like let the community select the locations of where these data centers will be built, instead of letting those companies choose where they want them to be built. Because there's going to be people that are going to be like, I don't want any data centers nearby, and kind of put a rule into place to where we would select where these data centers would go and not the companies. If you guys are letting the data centers be built, I would suggest that they'll be built on land that has already been cleared, and not built on land like such as forest and the native areas. Because if we do that, we're just going to end up destroying the native areas in Whitley County, and as you can see over through communities around the country and in Indiana, we are just destroying wildlife and the native part of the community in certain areas too. And thank you guys for having this meeting and today for all of us.
Hello, I'm Tana Winker. I'm at 3449 East Magley Lane, Columbia City. There's really not much I can add to this, except as a candidate for county commissioner right now, I would strongly encourage you to listen to all these voices, because you seem to have quite a consensus of opinion in the room right now. And I would agree with George. The next meeting has probably got to be in a larger space, because there's a lot of concern and there seems to be a lot of confusion about the process you're in right now. And finally, I just want to applaud you for your goals you set forth in the beginning when you put heavily restrict, hyperscale data centers. I think maybe heavily restrict isn't strong enough, according to the opinion of many of the people here. And the moratorium is the best way to make sure you get ahead of it, because the process you're in is a good process. I'm really happy you're looking at doing an ordinance to get ahead of it. And I want to thank you for this process.
Good evening. My name is Tyler Schiff. I live 123 West 500 North in Columbia City. And just I really like a lot of the definitions of decommissioning systems, of what we need in place in order to know how these devices can be cleaned up in the end. But really, one big point that I want to bring up is the moratorium that a lot of people have brought up. But if we have a moratorium, or do not have a moratorium, and the commission comes up with definitions of the data centers for us without many more public interactions like this, the schedule for the definition of this was in October, I think, to get this defined. That seems like a pretty tight schedule to me. And what I'm worried about is if we do come up with this legislation defined by your group or a public vote and it does not get passed and it's a no vote, then we still don't necessarily have any definitions of data center and still give us a lot of open risk of letting data centers being able to come in without any legislation in place even in 4 months. So I would recommend moratorium for the 1 year to then define over a more open air discussion with the community to then make us not susceptible to having nothing in place in 4 months.
Anyone else? See one person moving. I don't think they're coming up here. So this is the last call. Okay, our public listening session is now closed. It is not yet 10 o'clock, so I will open the floor up to the Planning Commission. If anyone up here has any comments that they would like to add or questions that they would like to bring up.
I'd just like to say appreciate everybody being here this evening and giving us input. We have a tough job, and I want people to recognize that this is not easy. We have to make tough decisions, and but I certainly appreciate, I know the rest of the board appreciates all your input and your feelings, and I'll certainly take it under advisement.
I've seen a lot of people in the room tonight. By the way, my name is Joe Wolf. I live at 269 South, 600 West, Larwell.
Nice meeting you, Joe.
Yeah, nice meeting you, Jack. Jack's actually a neighbor via my wife, who's from Cherubusco. You know, we come from different parts of the county. This is a county board. So, a little bit of background. My family has lived on the same piece of land in Whitley County for 150 years. We are no stranger. You know, we see what you guys are saying. But also we have to form an unbiased opinion when we listen to this. We cannot come in biased. And tonight we have opened up the floor to hear all of you. We are taking a proactive approach, not a reactive approach. You know, I think we've gotten beat up a little bit because we went to that approach. We want to know before this comes in. There's nothing in the comprehensive plan that says anything about data centers. We don't have anything on the books. You know, we try to cover all the bases, but sometimes something just gets missed. So, and that's why we keep building and that's why we started at first asking questions, because data centers have been so much in the news. And it's like the one speaker said, all of us have in this room probably one of these. We are part of the problem. You know, I can tell you I'm not on Google and I'm not on Facebook. So, but thank you very much for coming tonight. So, but the biggest thing I would hope that everybody remembers, this is Whitley County. You're talking South Whitley, Cherubusco, Larwell, you know, other little Tunker, Laud, you know. That's the way people identify each other, you know. Most of us know where each other lives. You give me an address, I'll know where you're at. So, but thank you tonight for coming out and letting us hear your opinion.
So I'm Tim Lungenbaugh. I'm the county council member on the Plan Commission. I just want to thank you all for showing up and talking to us about your concerns and your thoughts. It's very helpful to us. so we can make good informed decisions on moving forward with this. So again, thank you. Your input is very helpful and appreciated, and we'll definitely take it into consideration, and I share a lot of your concerns. So thanks for showing up.
Your screen that's been up here the entire time says your next regular meeting is July 17th, and your handout says it's July 15th. So when is your next regular meeting?
Whatever day that Wednesday is.
Okay.
I don't have a calendar in front of me.
It's the 15th. This is
Third Wednesday.
that slide is incorrect.
Yeah, so the next meeting will be July 15th, 7 p.m. Anything else from the planning commission? Staff, do you have anything else?
I have nothing further.
Okay, we stand adjourned.
I think they need to.
Oh, yeah, I mean,
Take care, Jack.